Hi, this is Todd. Hope you're having a great weekend. This is just a quick tip to share with you a feature that you may be familiar with and have never really thought about how to use with a client, and a new feature we added this week that I just wanted to point out. I've got a simple case here. I've got a $200,000 6% mortgage on a refinance. There's 337 months to go. This client thinks that they'll be in this house for about 7 more years. And their concern, though, is while they love the 7-year ARM at 3%, they're a little bit worried about what if they stay in the house a little bit longer? Shouldn't they just go with a 30 at 4%? Well, remember when you set up an ARM, you've got your pop-up box here. So I've got in the 84 months, 2% adjustment, then adjust every 12 months at 2%, life cap at 12, floor 4, 250 margin, and half or so there on the index. And the default is to increase to worst case scenario. And we're going to be adding a couple of new scenarios for you next week. But do remember that compliance guidelines say that if you're marketing to a client and there's an inducement to secure an ARM as a source of financing, from a compliance perspective, you're supposed to always use the increase to worst case scenario for your illustration. So I'm going to leave that there. So what does that do for us? I've got a 7 and a 30 here. And the closing costs are going to be the same, right? So I want to point out to the client that whether you get a 7 or a 30, your closing costs are going to be the same. In this case, $2,020. What we start to see a difference is a payment difference. The 30-year fixed is going to save them $265 a month. The 7-year ARM is going to save them $377 a month. So at a basic level, that's pretty straightforward. I'd rather save $377 a month than $265. But let's take this down to another level, make it extremely practical, and look at it from a standpoint of the wealth impact over time. Now remember, we recommend you default to the fixed, because what the fixed does is it really makes it easy for you to explain to the client what it is that you're going to be doing for them. So they're spending $12.29 per month today. You should spend $12.29 per month today whether you refinance or not in each of these scenarios. And look at this from this perspective. When I go down and look at payments over 7 years, you are going to spend $103,243. I'm recommending that you spend that either way. You could spend that for fun money. You could spend an extra $377 a month on coffee and going to the amusement parks and dinners, or you could save that for your future, or you could repay that towards your house. Either way, what's cool here is we're benchmarking side by side the same payment each month over 7 years. Now, when we just look at this from a 7-year perspective, you can see here the wealth impact. The 30-year fix is going to save them $27,909. The 7-year ARM would save $41,725. Now that's pretty cool right off the bat, because you can see here there's quite a bit bigger savings here over the 7-year period. And that's the time frame they're saying they'd like to be in for 7 years, right? What you can do with this now, though, that's kind of nice with your client is let's go out to 8 years, because in the 8th year the simulator's kicking in and we're now showing the worst case scenario for that ARM in the 8th year. Now you'll notice something. The 30-year fixed savings jumped to $32,000. The 7-year ARM savings is at $45,000, right? So at the end of 7 years it was $41,000. So there's still savings on the 7-year relative to the 30. But you'll notice that what's happening, the gap is starting to close. Let's go out to 9 years. 37 versus 47. Let's go out to 10 years. 42 versus 47. So what have you started to notice? That at this point, the actual interest rate has gotten above the 30 and you're starting to lose ground on your monthly savings. But what's really cool here is at 11 years, that's the break-even point. That's the point where the 30-year fixed is going to save that client more than the 7-year ARM. And you're illustrating a worst case scenario. So what I could do for this client is say, look, if you're in the house for 7 years, this is going to take you from $27,000 to $41,000 in savings. But you're nervous because you might stay there longer. Well, if you stayed there for 10 years, I can still tell you that the 7-year is better than the 30. If you stay there for 11 years, then what am I saying? That the 30-year is going to be better than the current loan. And if I even want to go out further, say to 15 years, we can see now as it runs the simulator out and does the comparison, what started to happen? the actual savings now is being eaten away by the higher interest rates. So I'm now at $68,000 with a 30 and 27. But still, if I was in this mortgage for 15 years, I'm still $27,000 ahead of where I would have been on the 30. So you see, we're actually calculating two break-evens in this conversation. First, the point at which the 30 is better than the 7, and secondly, the point at which the 7-year is worse for the client than staying with their current 30 in a worst-case environment. And you'll notice this went from green to red in the 21st year. That means if they took the 7-year today at 3%, they could go for 20 years and they would just break even on their total monthly expenses over time. How cool a story is that to be able to share that with your client? Now let's say the client says, okay, so you're telling me that at about 10 years or so, or 11 years, I'm better off with the 30. So I think I want to go with the 30. Now the way you can deal with this, I can shrink this up, all right? And I come right back down in my conversation, and I've now got just the current 30 and the existing mortgage and the new 30. You'll notice that on the repaying basis, the client had 337 months to go here, and they have 239 months to go here. That means for the same payment that they're making today, you can show them now how quickly they can pay off this mortgage. Well, let me show you the new feature that we added this week that's really, really exciting. What if your client said, you know, what would it take for us to pay this thing off in 10 years? Well, you could always come up here and just say, well, let's just put in $1,500, and you could do it trial and error, right? If you paid $1,500 a month on both mortgages, your existing mortgage would pay off in 221, and your new mortgage, you could pay that off at $1,500 a month in 180 months. That's 15 years. But now look what you can do. When you click your little box here, we've put in a thing that says to pay off in 120 months requires an extra payment of $554. So we're snapping to whatever you've taken your slider to here. And you can put this to anything. I could say 135 months, and it recalculates your payment for you right here. So let's say they want to pay off in 10 years. It's telling me to pay off on 120, pay an extra $545. All I need to do is put in $545 monthly until the loan is paid off and click Save. And now you'll notice I'm paying $1,500 a month now plus an extra $545, and I'm going to be paid off in 121 months or 10 years. Now what's really compelling is if I want to pay this off in 120 months, notice what it's done, $720. So I come over here and I put in $720 a month, paid monthly until the loan is paid off, and click Save. And now I can tell a pretty interesting story. You're going to have to pay $1,500 a month plus an extra $720 to be debt-free in 121 months versus $1,500 and an extra $545 to pay off in 121. So I can play with this any way I want to. I can go back to my original fixed, and you'll notice now they're benchmarking the same, but I'm able to say $720 extra, $545 extra. If you want to be debt-free in 10 years, this is what it's going to take. You're going to have to spend a lot more money to get there with your current scenario than your new scenario. And I can come in very quickly with one click, and I can take those away if I want to do that. But this gives you a whole new way to illustrate for your client. You might show one product like a 30-year fixed with different extra payments, showing them a different payoff time period and term. So I hope these tips are helpful to you. I wanted to let you know this new feature was here. Hat tip to Troy Gamble, who asked for this and said that he was doing this a lot with clients and he was having to do it manually. So now you can come in with any loan program that you're working with and set a target date, 200 months. That's $355, and then just go in and add that extra $355. $355 monthly, save, and now you've got their current payment plus $355, and you've got your target date right there at as close to 200 months as we can get you. Wish you the best. Let us know how we can help, and have a fantastic weekend.